Welcome in, belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman fantasy football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you, who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 73, Week 12 Rewind. And before we get any further along, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingman Assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, in this episode, we are going to be going over the weekly rewind. Take a gander at our Goosometer, check in on our trade watch. We will have another installment of Mike Rant this week, and we will check in on the updated standings. But before we do that, let's check in on the theme of Week 12. And it starts off with a holiday Thanksgiving Festivus, as we had 23 players in our starting lineups for the Thursday and Friday game. Those 23 players scored a combined 350.92 points to average 15.3 points per player per start for our players on the three Thursday games and the Friday game. Contrasting that with the rest of the players who played on Sunday and Monday, and those players averaged 12.3 points per start. So our players who played on Thanksgiving and Black Friday scored an average of 3 points higher than their Sunday and Monday counterpart players. All right. Also, we had a QB duel as our top two quarterbacks in the league, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, are clearly separating themselves from the rest of the pack, as Josh Allen was the highest scoring player this week at 41.66 points, and Jalen Hurts was the second highest scoring player at 38.5 points. All right, this time around we have a little midweek news, as we usually don't have some news reports on the Rewind show, but we do today, so let's check in on the news. We have Justin Jefferson has been activated off of the IR list. Activated. Justin Jefferson had until Wednesday at 4 o'clock to be activated or his season would be over, but he was activated on Tuesday at approximately 4 o'clock, beating that deadline by around 24 hours, so he will be back, and that is a huge boost for King George, although he will still miss Week 13 because the Minnesota Vikings have a bye, but he will be back for King George in Week 14. On the other side of the spectrum for news, we have some bad news for Amazing Spidey, as Jonathan Taylor has a thumb injury, and I'm not sure when this happened to him, but he does have a thumb injury, and according to the owner of the Colts, Jim Irsay, he is going to have surgery on that thumb on Wednesday. He is going to be out a minimum of 2 weeks, maybe 3, maybe 4. They are still deciding whether a short-term IR is the best course of action. So unfortunately for Spidey, he is going to be without Jonathan Taylor, who is supposed to be his second-half superstar for the foreseeable future. But hopefully he will at least return for the fantasy playoffs. All right, guys, let's check in on our Week 12 Rewind. Let's go back. Week 12 Rewind. All right, let's check in on our first game on the slate, as we had Michael's Amazing Spidey taking on Corey's Mac Daddy 2s in a divisional matchup of the even division, and Amazing Spidey was able to take this one 130.92 to 92.28. Amazing Spidey had three running backs. All three of his running backs scored 2 touchdowns and scored more than 20 points. And I like to check in on a group of 3 players that I like to call the Deuces. Ever since the trades that Amazing Spidey made a few weeks back of picking up Derrick Henry and Devontae Adams, he now has 3 players on his team who were taken in the second round of our fantasy draft. That is his pick of Josh Jacobs, along with Derrick Henry and Devontae Adams. And the Deuces this week scored 50 points. Let's see what other players made the top performers list for Amazing Spidey in this crucial victory, as he had Christian McCaffrey score 28.4 points. Jonathan Taylor had 21.1 points.
He's on fire!
He also had Patrick Mahomes get 20.82 points. Derrick Henry rebounded after a couple of duds with 20.1 points, and the Miami defense showed that Susan Boyle has no talent, as they were able to get 19 points. As for the duds for Amazing Spidey, he had Puka Nacua score only 4.7 points. Now for the strong players that were left on Amazing Spidey's bench. One of the Deuces, Josh Jacobs, had 20.5 points, and Kyler Murray had 20.44 points.
He's on fire!
And Mr. Near Relevant, the second to last pick in the draft, Nico Collins had 19.9 points. And Amazing Spidey made it through the week without any major injuries. Now let's check in on Mac Daddy 2s, as this was a devastating loss, as he was so close to getting to 500 for the first time in his season, but alas, he fell to 5-7. But let's check in on the players who helped him get to his 92-point output this week, as he had Deebo Samuel get 18.9 points.
Who? Deebo.
And he had CeeDee Lamb keeps chugging along, getting 15.3 points. And kicker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Brandon McManus, had 14 points.
He's heating up!
As for his duds, he had Saquon Barkley score only 5.8 points. Now, I had a bunch of games on this Sunday, and I had the Giants-Patriots game in the corner TV, so it was not the center of my attention, but I was surprised as Barkley had 4.5 points early in the first quarter, and he was stuck on that score all the way until the fourth quarter. I wasn't sure if he was hurt or what was going on. If they didn't give him the ball or if he was just getting 0 yards of carry, but he was stuck on that 4.4 points for a long portion of the game, and he finished with a measly 5.8 points. As for strong players left on Mac Daddy 2's bench, he had the enigmatic Gabriel Davis scored 19.5 points, and Ramondre Stevenson had 19.1 points on the bench. Mac Daddy 2's made it through the week without any major injuries. On to our next game. We have Alex's They Took Our Jobs up against Katie's King George, and we had a major upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
As They Took Our Jobs was able to defeat King George 112.96 to 58.78. This was the biggest blowout of the week, as They Took Our Jobs won by over 53 points. And as for Katie's King George, she had the lowest score of the week. All right, let's check in on the top performers for They Took Our Jobs, as he had Jalen Hulu Has Live Sports score 38.5 points, and he keeps chugging along right in that train. As for other players who scored well, but pardon me, do you have any great Bijan Robinson?
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
As Bijan Robinson scored 25.8 points.
He's heating up!
And Isaiah Pacheco had all the work to himself, as he had 23.4 points, and Alvin Kamara had 13.9 points.
He's heating up!
Despite his high score and strong players, he did have several players on his bench several players in his lineup who were duds, as he had Romeo Duds for the Green Bay Packers score only 5.9 points, and Amari Cooper had only 2.6 points. And he had the kicker for the Lions, Riley Patterson, score 0 points to get the goose. He did have some strong players that were left on his bench, as Russell Wilson had 18.76 points, and Jacoby Myers finally got it done with rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell at 17.1 points. As for his injuries, he had Amari Cooper had to leave the game early with rib injuries.
Oh, no!
At this point, we are not sure if he's going to miss any time going forward or not. As for King George, she is still slumping, losing 4 of her last 5. You can't play Team B every week, although we wish we all could. She only had one top performer of Garrett Wilson at 13.9 points, and she had a pair of duds, as James Conner had 5.2 points and Adam Thielen had only 1.7 points. As for strong players left on her bench, she had CJ Superstar once again score a strong game at 30.86 points. Katie's King George is in the same dilemma that she had last year. As last year she had Joe Burrow and she kept playing him while Justin Fields was scoring 40 points a game on her bench. This year she has Lamar Jackson, who's been kind of mediocre, getting about 15 points a week, while CJ Stroud has been on fire. It's hard to say who she should play each week, but Stroud has been the better player all season long, and especially in the last 4 or 5 weeks. But it's going to be pretty hard to sit Lamar Jackson, so she's damned if she does, damned if she doesn't. Tough call for King George. On to our next game. We have Jimerson's Red Sox Nation up against Bernie's Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
And Red Sox Nation got a win for a second win in a row, getting 139.0 points to Team B's 91.56 points. Red Sox Nation was the highest scoring team of the week. And let's see how he got his points as he put in the newly activated Kyren Williams into his lineup, and he did not disappoint as he had 35.4 points, and he had the most points of anyone who was not a quarterback this week. And this was his second game in a row that he's played that he has had a strong performance.
He's heating up.
He did have a 5-week absence, but his last game before his injury that he missed time, he also had a 20-plus point game. And I'd like to officially welcome back Mr. Kyren Williams.
Welcome back.
As for other players on his top performer list, all you need is Jordan Love, who scored 26.62 points on Thanksgiving.
He's on fire.
And Tyreek Hill had 20.9 points.
He's heating up.
Zay Flowers had a wild game as he scored a late touchdown. Even though his coach told him to take a knee, he just wanted to do another touchdown celebration as he scored 20.7 points, scoring 2 touchdowns on Sunday night. And the Dallas defense has been an MVP caliber position this year as they've gotten 11 points and they have a double-figure scoring game once again.
He's on fire.
Red Sox Nation had no duds this week, but he did have some strong players left on his bench in a bold move.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Red Sox Nation sat the NFL's touchdown leader in Raheem Mostert, and he scored 21.4 points. And depending on who he would have sat, Zay Flowers was not that big of a difference, but Terry McLaurin only had 7 points. So that would have been even more points in his lineup if he would have played Mostert. But he did not. He also had James Cook on his bench, who had another fine game, scoring 13 points.
He's on fire.
As for Team B, unfortunately, he has lost 7 in a row.
You're as cold as ice.
Let's see what players were in his lineup, as he had one of his better games, especially recently at 91.56 points, but he just ran into a juggernaut of Red Sox Nation who had the highest score this week. All right, players who did well for Team B. He had Calvin Manley get 19.4 points.
He's heating up.
Interestingly enough, Calvin Ridley had 0 points going into halftime, and I was all ready to put him on the dud list with a Calvin risky drop, but he rebounded so well in the second half to get that 19.4 points. Jalen Waddle had 15.4 points, and kicker for the Dolphins, Jason Sanders, had 12 points.
He's heating up.
He did have a couple of duds, however, as DeAndre Hopkins had 6.4 points, and the Kansas City defense had 1 point. Rashee Rice had 20.7 points on his bench, and he did have an injury of Baker Mayfield with an ankle injury.
Oh, no.
He did have an MRI this week, and it was negative, so we're not sure if he's going to miss any time or not. I'm not sure if I mentioned here, but Red Sox Nation made it through the week without any major injuries. On to our next game. We had Paul's Cubert Rage up against Ken's Tampa Brady, and Cubert's Rage was able to get the victory as he beat Tampa Brady 128.96 to 102.26. Cubert's Rage had 7 players in his lineup with 10-plus points this weekend. Let's see what players were on his top performers list, as he had Josh Allen keeps chugging along as he was the highest scoring player this week at 41.66 points. He also had Stephon Diggs finally get off that dud list as he had 2 games in a row on the dud list, but he is now a top performer at 16.4 points. David Montgomery had 15.1 points.
He's on fire.
and he had Frank the Tank Dell.
Once it hits your lips, it's so good.
Frank the Tank Dell had 14.5 points, and he keeps chugging along on that train. Not to mention, Rashad White at 12 points is also a train rider, as he's been doing very well for a long period of time. And kicker Tyler Bass for the Buffalo Bills had 12 points as well.
He's heating up.
Just to check in on his Bills points, Bills, as his 3 Bills totaled 70-plus points this week, as they were the team, the highest scoring fantasy team this week instead of the Lions finally. As for some players on Hubert's Rage bench who performed very well, Mike Evans had 22 points.
He's on fire.
Sam Howell, surprisingly, is also chugging along right in that train, as Sam Howell had 19.3 points, and TJ Hawkinson had 13.5 points on the bench. As for Ken's Tampa Brady, unfortunately, he was the highest scoring loser this week.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Tampa Brady has now lost 2 games in a row, but let's see what players helped him get to that 102 points. As in a bold move this week, he changed his starting quarterback.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
He put in Trevor Lawrence, and what a move it was, as he had 26.56 points. Keenan Allen just keeps up. He was actually heating up.
He's heating up.
He also had Keenan Allen get 17.6 points.
He's on fire.
Najee Harris had 15.9 points, and Christian Olave had 14.9 points.
He's on fire.
He did have one dud of Gus Edwards, who had 4.2 points. For Tampa Brady, he made almost all the right moves, but it was just too much to overcome, as Hubert's Rage had a huge score of over 128 points. And Tampa Brady is going to need to get that 2-game winning streak now, as he has to win his last 2 games to have a chance to make the playoffs. As for some strong players that were left on his bench, Chuba Hubbard had 17.7 points, and the New York Jets defense had 11 points. Unfortunately, he had Christian Olave leave the game early with a concussion.
Oh, no.
And we are not sure if he is going to play or not. I'm not sure if they're one of the bye weeks next week. I'm just not sure at this moment. I feel like they are, but I'm not sure. All right, on to our next game. Oh, what a game this one was. This was Nick's Waddle Away against the hottest team in the land, Reggie's Lionized, and we had a huge upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Nick's Waddle Away defeated Reggie's Lionized 98.92 to 98.08. Let me repeat that one more time. The score was 98.92 to 98.08. That means that Waddle Away won by 0.84 points. He won by less than a point, and it happened at the last minute on Monday night. And this is now 3 wins in a row for Waddle Away. With this 3-game winning streak, Waddle Away is now 6-6, and this is the first time this year that he is at 500. To say this game was close would be an understatement. This was also the closest game of the year. All right, let's see how Waddle Away got to this narrow victory, as Devontae Smith had 20.1 points. Tony Pollard had 19.3 points.
He's heating up.
DJ Moore had 16.9 points.
He's heating up.
And I'm going to sit here for just a second, as DJ Moore on the final drive of the game caught 2 catches for 52 yards to give him the 6.2 points needed just to overtake Lionized in the last moment. I was watching this game as I had interest in the outcome, but I could not make it to the end, and I checked the score in the morning to disbelief that Waddle Away was able to come back. Waddle Away also had a top player of Justin Tucker at 11 points.
He's heating up.
And I'm not going to lie, I was watching that Sunday night game, and Justin Tucker missed, I don't know if it was a 40 or 50-yard kick, and I thought that was going to be the reason that he was going to lose this week, is that was 4 or 5 points that would have made it a lot easier for DJ Moore to take over. But DJ Moore said, "Don't worry, I got this," and he took it on himself to get the comeback win. All right, Waddle Away did have a dud, however, of Kareem Hunt, had only 2.2 points. And he made some mistakes in his player choices, as in a bold move, he stuck with Tua Tagovailoa instead of playing the hottest quarterback in the land, Dak
It's a
Prescott.
bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And Dak Prescott had another monster game of 32.24 points, and Christian Watson had 17.9 points on the bench. Nick's Waddle Away made it through the week without any major injuries. All right, let's check in on Reggie's Lionized, as he was the hottest team in the land, like I said earlier, and this snaps his 6-game winning streak. And in this game, his Lions let him down. They were good, but not great, as he had 3 Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jared Goff, and Amon-Ra St. Brown combined to score 47.5 points. All right, let's check in on his top performers this week, as Jared Goff had 24.18 points.
He's on fire.
Michael Pittman had a strong game at 15.7 points.
He's heating up.
And of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, had 14 points as he keeps chugging along. And I have to say this once again, that he has made the top performer list in every single game this season that he has been on the field. And it's just an amazing run. His consistency is off the charts. Lionized had no duds this week, but he did have some strong players on his bench, just like Waddle Away. They both could have had higher scores. One of these teams could have won by a bunch, or they could have been tied with more points, as he had Matthew Stafford on his bench at 25.36 points. Blake Groupie, the kicker for the Saints, had 19 points. And Jaden Reed, the wide receiver for Green Bay Packers, had 13 points. And believe it or not, he is on fire.
He's on fire.
All right, guys, let's check in on our Goose-O-Meter.
I'm just cruising along.
All right, that Goose-O-Meter keeps on rising. It's going up, 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 up. And we are up to 8 gooses this year, as They Took Our Jobs added his second goose, as Riley Patterson got 0 points this week. And I don't know if it's interestingly enough, it's also Riley Patterson's second time getting a goose, but he's done it for 2 different teams. He did it this week for They Took Our Jobs, and he did it earlier in the season for Katie's King George. So now we have Red Sox Nation with 2 gooses. They Took Our Jobs with 2 gooses. We have Team B with 1, Tampa Brady with 1, King George and Mac Daddy 2 had the self-imposed goose earlier in the season. All right, guys, let's check in on our trade watch. Buy, sell.
Hold! Wingman Fantasy Football Trade Watch.
All right, let's check in our trade watch. Of course, there's now been 4 games since this trade's been made, as Amazing Spidey acquired Davante Adams from Red Sox Nation from Raheem Mostert. And let's just check on the easiest way these guys are going. So in Davante Adams' 4 games since joining Amazing Spidey, he has scored 5.4, 11.6, 17.7, and 9.8 points, equaling 44.5 points. He has been started for Amazing Spidey in all 4 weeks, so his points per start is 11.1 points. Excuse me. And for Red Sox Nation and Raheem Mostert, since he's joined Red Sox Nation, he's played in 3 games due to having a bye week in this span, and Raheem Mostert has scored 14.5 points, 9.8 points, and 21.4 points for a combined 45.7 points. However, Red Sox Nation has only started him for 2 of those 3 games, sitting him on his bench for his best game at that 21.4 points on Black Friday. And Raheem Mostert, points per start for Red Sox Nation is at 12.2. So if you want to take these players and points per start, Red Sox Nation has a 1.1 point advantage in this deal. As for our other deal, Amazing Spidey sent out Justin Herbert to Tampa Brady for Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, since joining Amazing Spidey, has scored 17.7, 2.9, 4.9, and 20.1 points for a combined 45.6 points. And Amazing Spidey has played him 3 of those 4 weeks, luckily sitting him in his worst game since joining his team. And so he has 14.2 points per start for Amazing Spidey. Very strong. And that would be on the top performer list, of course. And Justin Herbert for Tampa Brady has scored 7.14, 30.42, 25.7, and 17.38 points, equaling 80.68 points. And Tampa Brady has played Justin Herbert in 3 of the 4 weeks since he's joined his team. And Herbert's average points per start since joining Tampa Brady is 21.1 points. So both Henry and Herbert, although Herbert's got a 7-point advantage per start, but he's a quarterback to a running back, they both would be on the top performer list with their average points per start. All right, let's check in on our what if. And the way we are going to do this, we're going to check on the what if lineup for our most recent game here, and we'll go from there. So, Amazing Spidey with his new players of Devontae Adams and Derrick Henry this week scored a combined 29.9 points. If he did not make the trade and played players that were already on his team, he would have played Nico Collins and Raheem Mostert, and those guys would have scored 41.3 points. So 41.3 is way bigger than 29.9, which means with the trade, he lost 11.4 points. It did not affect his outcome as he would have won regardless this week. So overall, since making the trade, Amazing Spidey has lost 23.36 points. He has none of his outcomes have changed as he's been 3-1 over that span, but he's in a tight race for the number 1 seed with Paul's Qubit Rage, and losing 23 points might be a bad move. We will see. But of course, like Red Sox Nations last year when he made his trades, he kind of lost points early, but he was playing for a championship, and those guys rebounded strong in the playoffs. So let's hope that Amazing Spidey can duplicate that track as a slow start early and have these guys take off in the playoffs. But Amazing Spidey has lost 23.3 points since making the trade in his overall points. All right, let's check in on Red Sox Nation. And this week, if he with the trade, he played Terry McLaurin this week. And if he didn't make the trade, he would have played Devontae Adams. Of course, Raheem Mostert was not played, so he wouldn't have been played either way. With that being said, McLaurin scored 7 points this week. Devontae Adams scored 9.8 points this week. So in this scenario, he lost 2.8 points in week 12. But again, it did not change his outcome as he had a huge win by over 47 points. So overall, on his trade points, after the trade with his lineups, he scored 49.6 points with these players. And again, with his projection and assumed lineups, he would have scored 56.5 points without the trade. So he has lost 6.9 points overall since making this trade. But his outcomes would have been the same. He would have been 2-2. So again, he didn't lose any games that he wouldn't have lost. He didn't win any games that he wouldn't have won. But he did lose 6.9 points overall in the span of the 4 weeks. Now let's check in on Tampa Brady, who did not play Justin Herbert this week. So his lineup that he had this week, he put in Najee Harris. And if he didn't make the trade, he would have kept Derrick Henry. I think he would have played Gus Edwards over Harris, just by the way Gus Edwards had been performing. So that's the assumption I'm going to make here. So the lineup he had this week scored 15.9 points of Harris, and he would have had Derrick Henry in at 20.1 points. So this week, he lost 5.2 points. So all of our guys lost points this week if compared to if they did not make the trade. However, he would have lost anyway, as he lost by over 26 points this week. But overall, all 4 weeks, his points that he's acquired since the trade with his lineups that he's put in has been 117.56 points. And the points he would have had if he did not make the trade with his projected and assumed lineups would have been 115.46 points. So Tampa Brady has gained overall 2.1 points since making the trade, but his overall win record in that span is 1-3, and it would have been unchanged. So his record is the same, but he has gained 2 points, while Red Sox Nation has lost 6.9 points, and Amazing Spidey has lost 23.36 points over 4 weeks. Not good at all. All right, guys, let's check in on our newest segment, Mike Rant.
Baby Rant. Karen Rant. Monty.
I don't care whose fault it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Mike Rant.
All right, the subject for this week's Mike Rant is Reggie's Lionized. I know. Hey, man, you started off slow 0-5, and I was rooting for you, man. I wanted you to win as many games as possible just to keep the hope alive for our managers who struggle early. But then you got a little too close to the sun. You got too hot, and now you're trying to catch me for that number 2 seed, and it's freaking me out, man. So I need you to slow down. Wait. Oh, we just got this in. Lionized lost at the buzzer to Waddle Away. So a little breathing room for Amazing Spidey. So I retract my rant. I have nothing to say about Lionized. Good job. It's amazing how much you turned your season around and are now 6-6. All right, guys. Of course, I'm just playing around on these rants and just poking fun. Reggie's had a great turnaround, and he was scaring me for real. So I'm not going to lie. I was rooting against him to lose as one of these games. But he is still alive for that number 2 seed. If he wins next week and Amazing Spidey loses, he controls his own destiny for week 14, as there is a big time clash between Amazing Spidey and Waddle Away for the final week of the season. And it may have, for Lionized, it might be a playoff or 2 seed or bust kind of situation for him, as he is tied for the last playoff spot right now and can maybe jump all the way to number 2. So this is going to be a very, very exciting last 2 weeks and very nerve-wracking for a lot of our managers. Just so we can check in and reiterate this stuff, let's check in on our standings and see what we got going on here. All right, we had some movement here as Amazing Spidey and... Oh, no, that's the power rankings. That's not good. Let me pause this real quick. All right, I'm sorry for that jump cut there. I just noticed I put the wrong information in the standings. All right, here's the standings, and we did have some movement here as we had Amazing Spidey and Cubert's Rage both won, so they stayed where they're at 1 and 2. And whatever score Amazing Spidey gets, so does Cubert's Rage. They've gotten about 95 points the last 2 weeks or so, and when they get 125 points, so does the other guy. So Amazing Spidey's got a 40-point lead in points, but they are staying close, and that is well within striking distance from a 1 week differential there. So they are tied. So the win-loss is going to be very important these last 2 weeks. And the tiebreaker is going to be huge as well. And a little sneak peek on our preview matchups. They are playing each other this week. So it's going to be a huge contest. All right. On to our next part of the standings here. We had Red Sox Nation jump King George as he is now in 3rd place. They are both tied at 7 and 5, but Red Sox Nation has a lot of points, almost 153 points more than King George. And then in our 5th spot, we've got a 3-way tie for our last playoff spot between They Took Our Jobs, Waddle Away, and Lionized. And these teams are separated by 13 points. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention that They Took Our Jobs went from 9th place last week all the way to 5th place to be one of the biggest jumps in the standings all season long, and at the right time, and a very valuable jump indeed. Lionized, who was hoping to just get division tiebreakers to get the playoffs before, is now doing so well in points that he's only a few points back, and he can even make the playoffs with a point tiebreaker if he's got a week or if he's got some strong weeks ahead of him. All right, and also Mac Daddy 2s and Tampa Brady are both at 5 and 7, but they both have more points than all of our 6 and 6 teams, so they are still in it. But they're going to have to win. They might have to win both. They're going to have to win both their games. They're going to need 7 wins here, as I'm sure a couple of our 6 and 6 teams are playing each other. So it's going to take 7 wins minimum to get in the playoffs. So these guys have to win both games to have a chance to get in, but they do have a good chance with their point tiebreaker. All right, sorry for that jump cut here on the standings there. I didn't realize I had the wrong information up there. All right, guys, I would like to thank you all. Don't forget that you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and TuneIn Radio, and also Google Podcasts. Although I will admit Google Podcasts did not update the RSS feed last time. I don't know why. So hopefully with this one, it'll fix the content on that one. But if you want to listen to our audio versions of our podcast, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and Google Podcasts, and just search Wingman The League. Also, if you want to check on our video feeds, go ahead and check out wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. And there we'll have video and audio versions of our podcast. And of course, go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Wingman Fantasy Football. No spaces. Go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification button, hit some likes, leave a comment, all that good stuff. If you leave a comment on wingmanentertainment.net or YouTube, we will get that comment and or question into our next mailbag segment. Also, we now have 5 subscribers. I appreciate you. I don't know who you are because it's not public, so it doesn't give me a name, but I appreciate the subscriptions. Also, our last episode, week 12 ins and outs, was the fastest to 20 views, so I appreciate you guys there. So keep it coming. Let me know what else I can do for you. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. With that being said, guys, may your glass be full, your mug stay frosty, and we will see you next time.